Hey folks, welcome to Clubhouse. We've got another great conversation today with Dan and Bob, and we've also brought Lara on as a moderator. And Bob, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dan. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for making the time to join us on our economic or our EcDev Network chats. Dan and I founded these chats to really start having a conversation with economic development professionals across the globe, whether from a municipal, regional perspective, or even community activators. Our goal here is to create an environment where we can have open and honest discussions to rob and duplicate from each other. But seriously, it really is meant to foster innovation throughout. And that's our topic for today is we're actually going to be focused on innovation. So I'm just going to set the room before we get started. Now, for those that aren't aware, this session is being recorded. Dan and I do use the recording in terms of a podcast format. So just so you're aware of that, the theme today is all around innovation from both an economic and a economic development and community perspective. My name is Bob Minhas, and Dan Taylor, my co-host, will introduce himself shortly. I work with economic development teams to help create education and entrepreneurship for their local communities. And if you love this topic, if you want to participate on this topic, my hope is that you'll see that hand button with the notepad on the bottom. Just press that. That raises your hand, and Dan or I or Lara can bring you on stage to participate. Because again, we want this to be a conversation among all of us, not just Dan and I leading the chat. If you think this topic is of interest to any of your colleagues or friends, feel free to use the plus sign to invite them and ping them into the room. And it will, and then we'll have them join us. And again, they can also raise their hands if they want to participate in the chat. Just some best practices. If we do bring you on stage, just know by default your mic is open. So if you come on stage, just be prepared to turn your mic off. And I'm learning this practice. I'm still not great at it, but I do want to let you know that if you are speaking, we found that it's super helpful at the end or when you start to say who you are. And then at the end, just say, this is so and so, and I'm done speaking. That not only helps other people in the chat to know when to pipe in, but it actually is an accessibility feature for folks who are using readers and such listening to our chat. That's all I have to throw in for that. Dan, would you like to introduce yourself really briefly?
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, I'm Dan Taylor, and I'm the Economic Development Catalyst for the town of Innisfil, and also a strategic advisor and guide to those in the profession and to small business. And I'm super stoked today to talk about innovation. So I think that's great. And the other thing I wanted to share, and Lara is our current best practice. So this room, first of all, please, if you haven't yet, ping folks, talk to them after the fact, bring them on board if you think they're interested in economic development conversations. We are taking suggestions for topics. We've planned out the month, and after that, it's sort of open for sorting through. And the other thing that Lara has started doing is she has her own room and her own conversations, and that's open to anybody. So we really want this to be your channel, your club for your discussions. So I'll leave it at that for now and pass it back to you, Bob.
Thank you, Dan. Okay. Well, the first question I want to throw on the floor, which I'm hoping Laura and Will would love to jump in on, is this idea of innovation in a small rural. I'm not even going to say rural, but in smaller communities. I think for a long time, innovation has had this ideal that it belongs to tech companies or large conglomerates, whereas innovation can happen in the local pizza store. So, what I want to throw out here on the floor really quick is Laura and Will. I'd love to hear from you where you've seen innovation, either in the past or you're working on right now in your communities. I'll throw it to Laura first. Laura, where have you seen innovation in your communities happen?
It's amazing. You see innovation every single day from, companies that have had to pivot through COVID to some of the most, mind-boggling technology that's being developed. We're so fortunate in economic development that we really get to sit and bear witness to this amazing innovation that occurs. But I think what's been really exciting for me is to see the innovation in our profession over the last, even, I've been in economic development for 25 years, so I've definitely seen it change over 25 years. But I would say over the last year, it really has morphed as an industry. where conversations aren't just about, the big whale projects, but there is now this focus on building communities for everyone and opportunity and equity. And so, I think it's just such a exciting time to be in our profession and to know that we're really making an impact.
Agreed. I think a lot of economic development officers, especially in smaller towns, have really had to come up with quick and accessible solutions for their community. But even community economic development members who, are representing a community of their own or a subset of their own. Will, can I throw this question to you? I know we've heard in the past many ways of how you've come up with innovation. I'd love to hear of some examples you've seen in your community.
Excellent. Thanks, Bob. Will George here. I'm the Manager of Economic Development for the City of Merritt, British Columbia, which is 3 hours north of Vancouver. And I just wanted to share a couple of examples that I'm seeing of innovation in my community and region here, especially around areas that have not typically had tons of innovation. I come from a farming background, and we've seen quite a bit of partnerships that haven't historically happened between our agro-tourism, our farms in the Nicola Valley surrounding area with our businesses in the downtown core. Innovative practices that are happening there, partnerships, and increased connectivity between our local college and the farms that are in our area, the downtown businesses. There's a lot of partnerships that are starting to form around innovative ways of making sure that students have additional opportunities to look at entrepreneurship, to have a taste of different industries. Pre-COVID, we were working quite a bit with co-working spaces and making sure that there were opportunities for students to explore those different industries that they haven't historically looked at. And yeah, there's lots of innovative ways that we've been able to partner with our tourism businesses, our industrial businesses, and see those partnerships that haven't historically happened there. Will, finished.
Thank you, Will. That's phenomenal. We've got some new folks who have joined us on stage, and I'd love to throw it over to see if Barry, if you were interested in sharing some experiences or insights of where you've seen innovation in your community as well. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Bob. I think I'll hold off just another few minutes,
Of course.
and I'll join the conversation a little
Of
bit.
course.
Okay.
No problem. No problem. Now I'm hoping I'm saying your name right. Is it Sion Ah? Am I saying it right?
Sana.
Sana. I'm so sorry. I'm really good at complicating things that don't need to be. Sana, thank you for being here. Sana, have you experienced innovation in the communities you've worked in or been in before?
Yeah, I would say, so I work for the city of Fort Collins, Colorado. We have Colorado State University in our community, so it's a major land grant university. So quite a bit of research and innovation, whether it is on engine systems, specifically around clean energy or battery life systems, and then the ag tech as well. I would also say that we are seeing quite a bit of innovation with our small businesses really partnering on quite a bit, knowing that there is the systems around us to help specifically around medical devices. So we have a lot of physicians really going into needleless or different types of med tech. So always great to see and help and support our community members in that innovation happening in Fort Collins, Colorado. And this is Sana, and I'm done.
Thank you, Sana. That's wonderful to hear. I think obviously in the times we've been in and are probably going to be in, medtech is an interesting arena for innovation as well. I know here in Ontario we've seen a number of small businesses pivot to try and cater and focus on that market. Our friend Laura, great to have you on
Yes,
stage. Oh, sorry,
thanks.
Laura. Sorry, I
Oh,
didn't.
Laura.
Sorry, Laura.
Hi, Laura.
Hi,
Yeah.
I find it just as confusing as well.
Oh,
Thanks.
sorry.
That's okay.
Uh,
Thanks, Bob.
but I'd love to hear, especially because I know that recently we talked about your ability to get more small businesses granting or getting on the grant formula. That obviously is a form of innovation. But I'd love to hear some stories from your community as well on where you've seen innovation.
Sure. So I think we have certainly seen a lot of innovation around our post secondary institutions, as was just mentioned. We saw a really great partnership between Lakehead University and Polyethics, whereby Polyethics is a plastics manufacturer and they developed a type of biodegradable plastic that could be used on farms to reduce weeds, but also then be mulchable and biodegradable. So that was a really exciting partnership. I just wanted to build on what Laura had said in terms of how she's seen lots of innovation in our profession. And it's funny because I agree. Over the last year, we've seen a ton of innovation. And I think that there's two reasons for that. I think one is because there's more incentive to take a risk, because what do we have to lose at this point? And I think that the biggest barrier to innovation is really, especially in municipal government, provincial government, and federal government, is that inability or fear of taking risk. And I think that COVID has eliminated that by necessity. The other reason I think we're seeing it is because of that ability to take on more risk and because of the need to roll things out quickly, we're a little bit more nimble. So we're not having to perfect plans before we roll them out. And we're also looking at bringing things back to basics. So the 15-minute grant challenge that you mentioned, Bob, basically our city looked at the fact that Aurelia was not actually applying for grants at the same pace as surrounding communities. And we were trying to figure out why. And we did the same thing, Bob, you did in terms of overcomplicating the matter. And we looked at, do we bring in grant writers? Do we bring in, a team of professionals to help write these grants for people? And when we did a poll of the community, it was really just the perception that it would be hard to apply for applications. So innovation in that case looked like just clarifying that perception. It wasn't building any new programs. It wasn't doing anything really out of the box. It was just looking at the problem in a clearer way and addressing it through the easiest step, which was let's bust this myth that it's hard to apply for or time consuming. And it resulted in, I think, about $930,000 worth of grants locally for our community. So that's it for me. Laura, out.
That's amazing here. And I think that's a really interesting conversation that, initially I think Dan and I were thinking that this would be a topic of innovation in our community, but I don't know that we thought about innovation in our field, which is a great topic. Now, Josh has just joined us on stage. Josh, did you want to contribute to the conversation as well?
Yes, if I may, and thank you, Bob, again for allowing me to be part of this room in Clubhouse. Well, first and foremost, I'm an economic developer. I'm currently situated in the great state of Texas, working in the southernmost city called Brownsville. And some of the innovation that I've played a role in as a founder of Zem Group or Mejia and Company is to be able to continue innovating the way we do economic development, either in Canada, in the US, or in Latin America. A lot of the focuses that I've been able to pioneer, test, and be able to just showcase everywhere and share those practices has really revolved around entrepreneurship led economic development, which focuses really on the human capital that is already existing in a community and being able to create the type of ecosystems that are conducive for not only entrepreneurship but growth in small businesses and really fortify business retention expansion platforms and programs so that if everything works well and becomes successful from within, it's almost the attraction piece that just falls into place naturally. We've done a lot of different things. For example, one of the foundational challenges that we have in our side of the country is capital attainment for entrepreneurs and small businesses. So we've been able to almost implement a formula that has proven results in addressing capital attainment, for which is being able to understand exactly what are some of the challenges that businesses and entrepreneurs are facing to attain that capital, whether it's something that revolves around equity and diversity or revolves around just foundational knowledge when dealing with a business or operating and being able to scale it up. And in a short matter of time during COVID-19, when the CARES Act was first approved, we allocated about $400,000 to be able to come up with some sort of program that would help businesses obtain some of the assistance that the federal government released. So we actually leveraged the 400,000 and we created a very unique cash injection grant program, which resulted within 6 to 7 months in the total obtainment of over $9.6 million for small businesses in a community of a population of about 180 to 190,000. So that's just one of the strategies that we've been able to do: consolidation of resources, asset mapping, to be able to get the buy-in of the federal government to continue to promote and foster the scalability and innovation within entrepreneurship and small businesses has been great. And what we've noticed in a lot of the communities that I've worked with, again in Canada and the US and Latin America, is that these strategies not only help those from within attract human capital from outside to come and invest into the area, but it's almost like the traditional economic development method of attracting those big whales, as I've heard earlier in the conversation. They just seem to fall into place. You become more attuned with what works in your community, what are the needs of your community, so you can almost immediately identify, that big whale that would be a good fit. So that's a little bit about the innovation that I've been seeing, the stuff that I advocate and foster for throughout the country.
Josh, thank you. That's really great to hear, and I think really feeds really off well on the program that Laura just shared as well. So before I change this question, I really want to throw it to Dan, because Dan, I'm very biased when it comes to the innovation I always see in Innisfil, but I'd love for you to sort of share perhaps some that you've seen as well within your community or surrounding Innisfil.
Yeah, so some great conversation so far. I want to build on that. I've been in economic development for about 20 years, Lara, so just a little bit behind you. And I have noticed a huge leap of professionalism would be the wrong word, but maybe creativity and innovation. I came from a private sector marketing background, and I wasn't that impressed when I first got into the industry. And now I feel like I have to keep up and catch up, meaning the creativity, the innovation, the responsiveness. It's fantastic. Josh, really excited to hear what you're up to. Wouldn't mind connecting later and learning more. I think that's great. So I would say that the profession has advanced. Yes, COVID, nimble, risk taking. I'll talk a little bit later about Innisfil and being a risk taking municipality. I think it's just been fantastic. We have literally nothing to lose. So I think that's been liberating. I want to share what I used to call $100 million innovation. And I think if I did the math properly, it's $1 billion innovation. And it's the simplest thing. So sometimes we think of innovation as we think as STEM, science and research and universities, which are all great. So I started my career in Prince Edward County, which was an emerging wine region. The risk there was that when one planted grapevines, the vines would survive, but the buds, which are above ground, might freeze and not bear fruit. So you'd have a green vineyard full of leaves, but no grapes. And nobody quite knew exactly how the nut was going to be cracked to solve that. Long story short, I think actually two stages of innovation, but I'll focus mostly on the one, is that when you have, imagine like a tree branch, and in it, hopefully you can imagine buds. So what you do is you put that on a wire, and normally that wire is about 3 feet off the ground, kind of waist height. In Prince Edward County, it was about 6 or 8 inches off the ground. And the reason is you lowered that wire in the fall and you buried it and insulated it. So that difference, meaning the winter would kill your bud, is now it's insulated. Created a wine industry that probably now is 2 decades old, has generated well over $1 billion of both investment and wine sales and spin-off. And I call that technology because it's just knowledge and applying that knowledge for a solution that materializes. So I wanted to share that with people to not forget that technology can be the simplest thing. In Innisfil, really fortunate, super innovative community, and I'll keep it simple. We have a culture of encouraging risk, and it's more of a private sector. In fact, when I got there, I said it's more like Google than government at the town of Innisfil. They promote failing fast and failing forward, not new mantras, I think, for people in this group. We initiated Uber as the world's first ride-sharing transit system because it was cheaper. We were going to get data, and it could help us decide how we were going to grow our transit. We've got an accelerator right now. I could go on, but why don't I stop there? And happy to share that stuff, and I'm done speaking for now. Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, there's been some amazing innovations we've seen in Innisfil, and that being driven by the leadership there, which is wonderful. So, we've all shared some examples of where we've seen some really great innovation happen, and we've sort of touched on this next question. So maybe we need to morph it a little bit. But the next thing I'd really love to know is how do we really support and foster innovation among our small business community? So I just want to clarify that. I think there's a tendency for small tech-based businesses to naturally be a part of the innovation ecosystem. But again, I always think about the mom and pop pizza store owner, or the local dry cleaner. And I heard this really great story once about 4 years ago, which was really, really neat. Now, granted, it was a manufacturer, but it was in Simcoe County. And their goal was, how do we improve the manufacturing process that we do? And naturally, that sounds like, a big form of innovation. But here's all this owner did. All he simply did was he knew that he needed to bring somebody in who understood what they were doing, but didn't necessarily have history in the manufacturing sector. And I think it actually was an artisan. He purposely picked an artisan. He put this person at the station that, was part of the need to innovate. And he simply asked this person, look, here's how this station works. Here's how we do it. I want you to do it. And I want you to just naturally do what you think you naturally need to do. Now, my understanding is it took about a week, but after some time, this person was actually able to find a time savings of about 5 minutes. Now, anyone that knows manufacturing knows that that's probably worth quite a bit of money to save 5 minutes on the line in manufacturing. But I mean, it's these sort of ways of idea collisions that I think we get away from. So I'd love to hear, and if you don't mind, I'm going to actually start with Will again. Will, I'd love to hear from you some things that you found have worked in fostering innovation in your community for your small business owners.
Hi, Bob. Actually, would you be able to jump back to me in a minute
Yeah,
or so here?
absolutely.
Excellent. Thanks, Bob.
Laura, I saw your mic come on. Would you like to share and contribute to the conversation?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to supporting small businesses and finding innovative ways to do that, it really comes down to capacity building for our economic development organizations. I think as ED professionals, we think we have to try to do it all, and the reality is there's so many exciting partnerships that can occur to help support small businesses. So, for example, the Main Street America, which is the National Main Street Center, they've done some incredible work on helping to digitize Main Street businesses. We've heard from Caitlin Kane from Rural Lisk talking about getting broadband into communities. We've talked about organizations, even like IADC, who are teaching professionals how to support their small businesses. So really, it's building those coalitions and partnerships that allow for greater capacity of our EDOs.
Really great point. That's a really great point as well. Thank you. Can I throw this question to Jimmy? Jimmy, we've just joined us on stage, and I know you've participated in the past. Would you be open to sharing some thoughts about how you think we can foster innovation for our small businesses, our more Main Street businesses?
Sure, I would love to jump in here. I hated to be late, but I had someone in my office. Um, we've talked a little bit about digitizing, and I love that comment that you made about digitizing the Main Street businesses, because I think most of my Main Street businesses are retail. And so getting them to utilize their social media and their websites, are one of my retailers that had a website. She's just a small boutique, and she had a website. She scored fantastically during COVID. Like, I think her sales only dipped maybe 11%, while she was closed, because the online portion was still running. And a lot of my businesses they don't have websites. They've just, through COVID, they've started really using social media channels, and they've kept using those social media channels. So we've really tried to stress, hey, just because COVID is hopefully going away, we want you to keep doing those things that you've done in the past, because it worked, and people are expecting you to be online, and they're expecting to see your ads. And things of that nature. So as far as Main Street and downtown goes, I think that's been one of the best things for us. We're lucky to have fiber optics running through the community, and so we just need more people taking advantage of them. But I also love what Laura pointed out about the just the coalition and the partnerships. You know, workforce development just left my office, and they have so many different things that they can do to support employers, and we probably don't utilize them as much as we should. But yeah, that's just a few things.
Amazing. Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you. Before I pose the question, Barry, before I pose the question to you, Barry, really quick, I just wanted to reset the room once more. We're at 12:30 and we've had some new folks join us, which is wonderful. So I just wanted to start by letting folks know that we are recording the session. Dan and I do use this as a podcast format as well. And the theme today is we are talking about innovation in communities, more specifically around Main Street small businesses. But we've had a few topics around the idea of innovation within economic development. My name is Bob Minhas. My co-host here is Dan Taylor, and I work with communities to help them create ecosystems and education ecosystems for small businesses. Now, if you find this topic super interesting, please feel free to use the plus sign on the bottom and ping some colleagues and associates in to join us and perhaps join in the conversation. If you yourself would like to join in the conversation and have something to share, there's a hand icon with a notepad just on the bottom. You can press it, it'll raise your hand, and myself, Dan, or Lara can actually bring you on the stage so that you can participate. Just know that when we do bring you on stage, your mic will default to being on. So as soon as you jump on, you'll probably want to hit it to go into mute immediately. Enough about my preamble. Barry, I'd love to hear what you have to contribute to the conversation now.
Thanks, Bob. My name is Barry. I'm a manager with Economic Development Cowichan, which is a Vancouver Island for the Cowichan Valley Regional District. So in terms of small scale innovation with small businesses, one in my region is the creation of it fostering innovation through nonprofits. So a nonprofit organization, a cooperative of farmers formed a few years ago to do online deliveries for farmers. The benefit of a nonprofit, one is they have that organizational capacity where small business owners are, maxed out in terms of where they are and the work they're doing. Whereas the formation of a nonprofit working on the benefit for all of those farmers creates the opportunity, one, to have a focused activity. So the creation of, in this case, a online farmers market. Through COVID, they were able to, switch things up when all the farmers markets in BC were shut down for a period and people weren't going there. They switched to online delivery. Also, all the granting programs that are available throughout BC and in Canada, they were able to apply to them successfully, and it resulted in our region in investment in grant opportunities more than 1.2 million to support innovation within the operations that they already had. So one point around farmers, and I think the same opportunity exists for retailers. Line, a lot of small businesses find it challenging to do that on their own, but getting together and forming some sort of organization that can support all the members and have one centralized place for retail distribution and online sales, I think is a good opportunity for innovation on that kind of small retail level. Barry, and I'm finished.
Thank you, Barry. That's some really great insights, especially thinking about nonprofits, et cetera. I love the idea that what I'm hearing from a lot of folks so far is this idea of some sort of collaboration or ecosystem building, that innovation doesn't necessarily happen alone in your garage anymore. It really is about building on partnerships and skill sets. Dan, I'd love to include you in this question as well. Can you share a little bit on the topic?
Thanks, Bob. I think I have a good kind of hybrid response to talking about both the profession and businesses. So we launched an accelerator about a year ago in partnership with Ryerson DMZ. They're the top academic accelerator in the world, which is wonderful. And we've spent the last year focusing on attracting new tech-based, software-based startups to our community. We've been industry agnostic because we're such a small market, and we need the market to tell us whether or not there are sectors to focus in on. And now we're sort of deep into COVID and feel a need to not only be in the attraction business, and while we've always been in the retention and expansion business, we had not originally planned for our accelerator to do that. And we've identified this opportunity now to work with local businesses and take those same principles of acceleration, which are coaching, mentorship, access to capital, et cetera, and help companies 2x, 5x, 10x. So we're just at the beginning of that, but we're really excited because I targeted about 5 or 10 companies that we think have the potential to go through our acceleration program and use that basically tech software thinking and modus operandi, if you will, and apply it to local businesses that have been around for 5, 10, 20 plus years. So I'll be excited to report back at some point in time. But I think it's just great that innovation can take many ways, and I think what I just shared with you is a great professional way to innovate within the profession, and more importantly, not more importantly, but I always try and balance the weight, right? I mean, without businesses, there is no economy. So I think we'll really be able to help some of our local businesses advance. It's Dan, and I'm done speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan, for that amazing, amazing insight. I appreciate that. Angelique has just joined us on stage. Now, I've just invited her, so I'm not sure if she knows the question. But Angelique, I'd love to hear from you in terms of what do you think we could do to facilitate innovation among our more smaller Main Street mom and pop businesses?
Great question, you guys. Sorry, I just got off a meeting, but I really hate that I wasn't here to hear some of the ideas. If you guys um, wouldn't mind sharing some of the ideas that other people shared before I speak, I would appreciate it. Just because I like to hear what other people got to say too.
No worries, no worries. I know that we are recording the session, so there is an opportunity to hear that back. And Dan usually participates by creating a summary for sure. There's just been so many great ideas for sure. Not to worry. Laura, did you want to participate in the conversation?
Sure. I was just going to say, and it sounds probably pretty simplistic, but I think we shouldn't underestimate our role as matchmakers in a community. So I think that comes through trust and communication with our businesses. And of course, that was easier when you could just take a stroll downtown and you were in constant contact with businesses. So we have to be a little bit more intentional about it now. But a lot of the innovation that I recall that has happened in our community is at times due to the fact that we just knew that one person was working on one half of a project and the other person was looking for that solution, and it was just simply connecting them. So I think that we shouldn't underestimate that benefit that we as professionals bring to the community. And that's it for Laura. Thanks.
Brilliant, Laura. That's a really great point. Will, did you want to contribute as well?
Yeah, thanks, Bob. I just wanted to build on that, talking about matchmakers and our role as economic development professionals. Something that I was going to comment on just around the innovation that I work directly for the municipality, so I try to pull in partnerships from our chamber, from our business association that we have the support of, regional support, and I think as well hearing what the needs are. So previously, prior to COVID, we would do an annual business walk and talk to about 2/3 of our businesses and really get that data to find out where we can support. And we of course we've turned those virtually now, really to hear. And over the years we've heard that signage has been an issue, and building clusters, niche markets that we can attract to support these cluster businesses, and the role of our individual municipalities, how we can provide support, and where we need to pass the torch along to say, well, as a community, we can help your business. This isn't directly what we can support, but as a organization, as a community, we can lean on the support of our chambers. We can lean on the support of our local colleges and our employment support. We have Work BC here that provides wage subsidy programs. So leaning on those supports and really that matchmakers is such a vital role, and it breeds that innovation for the support that we can offer directly to our businesses and the partnerships we can form. Will, finished.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Laura, I saw that your mic came up. Did you want to participate in the conversation here? Add to the conversation?
Yeah, I think one of the other ways that we are innovating, and I'm thinking back to the beginning of COVID, was really being educators as economic development professionals. I think everybody rushed to become that information source for the small business community. We put up web pages talking about resources for COVID and where to get additional information, how to apply for the PPP funding in the US. I think everyone really looked at how we could be that educational support system for our local business community. We've always done it, but I think the way that we've had to communicate through COVID has really amped up. And I think we're communicating far more with not only our small businesses, but what I like to call our micro businesses. And so I think there's this amazing opportunity, as we hopefully come to the other side of the curve of COVID, for us to continue that important communication that we're providing to what the street level businesses in our communities.
Really good point as well. Thank you, Laura. Dan, can I bring you in the conversation here as well? I know I keep bringing you back on, but seeing all the work that Innisfil has done in terms of innovation and even your previous work, I feel like you can add a little more to the chat as well.
Thanks, Bob. And I want to build on economic developers as a catalyst and as connectors and networkers, and this half and half idea that Laura brought to our attention. So in Peterborough and in Prince Edward County, I held roughly the same event. One was called Creative Minds, and the other was called Creative Cocktail. And the idea was that I was promoting and building, a knowledge economy, a creative economy with creative workers. And one of the things that I found about creative workers is they're often hidden, unlike storefronts and manufacturers, etc. And creative workers are people, architects, software programmers, media people, yes, artists, chefs, all that good stuff. So on a regular basis, we would hold a 2-hour networking event. And the idea would be that we would have about 8 speakers that would have 3 minutes each, take up about an hour, and they would say who they are, what they do, and why they love the community. We would then tape video those and post them on YouTube and our various social media. But what happened is we got people out of the woodwork. They weren't hiding on purpose. They were just hidden naturally. And I used to say, if it was a manufacturing economy, I wouldn't have to explain what manufacturing is, but I felt the need to explain what the creative economy was. Anyway, long story short, imagine going to a cocktail party, a business networking party where you don't know anybody, and now you know 8 people and you know their story. So at least there's a natural way to network. The second half of the meeting was all about like cash bar and finger food, etc. And people loved it. They networked like crazy. People were hiring people. They were joint venturing and doing businesses. And I just found that formula, and then we had the social media and the marketing. We had real estate people bring prospective buyers to our meeting to show the vibe and to show the energy and the kind of people that were in the community. So again, I think this is this hybrid of economic developers as innovators, meaning an innovative way to get, a slightly undefined demographic together and to talk, and then for businesses to actually do business and find employment opportunities and business joint venture opportunities. So I just wanted to share that with the group because it was just a really wonderful experience I had. I'm done speaking.
Laura,
And
the conversation?
Thanks, Bob. I did something very similar, Dan, when I was in Annapolis, Maryland. Annapolis, Maryland is this beautiful historic maritime seaport on the Chesapeake Bay. But because of this historic quality of the community, there really weren't large office buildings. And where the majority of the vacancies were in these spaces of 1,500 square feet or less. So, coming in as the new economic development professional, I was thinking, geez, how do we fill these small spaces? Because everyone said Annapolis has a vacancy problem because there were a sign out on the building for all these 1,500 square foot second stories of these historic buildings throughout the downtown. So, thinking about, how do we find the entrepreneur? How do we find the small business that's less than 10 employees that ultimately could fill these spaces that, have populated throughout the downtown? And Dan, you said it so beautifully, which is if you hold an event, they will come. So we started a program called Entrepreneurs and Inventors, and it was a program meant to provide an educational component. And then the second half of the evening, two companies were able to pitch their business plans, sort of like Shark Tank, in front of a group of experts who came in and, basically rated their business plans. But then everybody in the audience also had a survey that they could fill out about the presentation. And what ended up happening was just this incredible ecosystem for entrepreneurship started to emerge. But the most exciting thing for me was two young entrepreneurs, probably in their 20s, came up and said, we love your program, but it's pretty structured. And we just want an opportunity to get together, as Dan said, for cocktails and, have those organic connections occur. And it was amazing. They started hosting these events, and 200 people would show up who were either thinking about becoming entrepreneurs or were existing entrepreneurs. And some of the greatest partnerships occurred over those cocktails. But what was exciting for me as the economic development professional is now suddenly my office spaces were being filled. We had this amazing energy of innovation occurring in a community that was kind of a sleepy historic maritime seaport. I'm Laura. I'm done speaking.
Really great share, Laura. Thank you. I think a social aspect is truly, truly important. I'm so sorry, Angelique. Did you want to add to the conversation as well?
Yeah, I just want to say that I really like the input that Lara and Dan talked about. Those are some of the similar things that I'm dealing with in our business improvement district. We spend a lot of time trying to um, basically fish those small business owners that are still operating out of the kitchen table, out of the garage, out of the basement, and try to marry them with storefronts. But some of the things that I would say innovation wise that have been working, or that I would even that I push people towards to just consider is collaboration. And you guys brought that up, as far as partnerships. But that's one thing that we know is that collaboration works. So I am really into, especially when small business owners a lot of times won't leave the home because they're scared that they can't hold down a storefront financially by themselves. So to be able to marry or introduce someone who has a coffee shop with someone who might have a plant shop and show them a storefront that they could actually get in together, and it takes the weight off of one person's shoulder. And so that's a really big thing that's sprouting up in our city, here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, is collectives. So collectives are really doing well here. The mall model failed. We have a lot of huge malls that are probably going to get raised and get turned into affordable housing of some sort, mixed housing. But even with that, that's what's happening with the housing, is like they're now situating housing above commercial. So, and then the commercial, a lot of times it is a collective. It might be a demonstration kitchen, or just a mixture of small businesses operating in the same space, and which creates a lot of excitement because it's almost like Lara said, it's almost eventful when you walk into a place and you can, um, access several businesses without walking, you know, all the way around like one of the old school malls that we used to have. So yeah, I like to talk to them about that. I like to do a needs assessment with our businesses as well as just critical thinking. I like to have conversations with them one on one. I spend a lot of time reaching out to them one on one, not just social media or through email. But I talk to them on the phone and I actually challenge them. I'll ask them, okay, so you know, if you were shut down, um, what does it look like for if COVID 2.1 came around, 2.0 came around? How would you sustain if you spent 6 months, or 7 months or 8 months with your doors closed? So, how can we look at your model to be more sustainable? And so, sometimes those discussions might morph into, it might be more sustainable to lease out a building, a business, versus continuing on with the same model that you had. So those are just hard conversations that we have, just kind of getting them to think about not, just being trying to fight the revolving door in their storefronts.
Really great point as well. That's okay. Really great point as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes my
And
chip.
Bob, if I can jump in, I think
Yeah.
what was just talked about is really important. I think often as economic development professionals, we think we need to solve all the world's challenges and, every business in our community. But some of the onus also comes on the landlords and making sure that they're part of the work that we do. I've seen landlords who've been really innovative in trying to come up with a means to restructure leases. They're willing to renegotiate leases, all just to keep the business in the building because it's much more expensive for them to have to go out and recruit a new tenant. So innovation, also is occurring from the property owner standpoint.
Absolutely, Larry. And I think that was those are some of the things, and that's what I was, in a sense. Okay, so for example, like if someone is running a business, and like I said, it might be the owner, and it's not working, because somehow, it just wasn't innovative enough to sustain through a pandemic. And so, and then there was no extra planning to be able to maneuver and switch some things up to be able to just make some changes to be able to keep moving forward. You literally were shuttered down the entire time, and so that's just not a sustainable model. And financially, I do want to save people. I want them to be able to not get themselves in a financial rut to the point where they can't, do something in the future. So I just don't think it's sustainable. And that's just a conversation I will have with them, because if you don't have those conversations, they may not always think about that. And I want them to know that, you having your doors closed for 6 months, that probably would have been a good opportunity to maybe look at leasing it out to a business that can sustain, through the pandemic, that can keep bringing you income. So, to keep your property up and going, you could put them on a month to month lease. They might be shopping around looking for a permanent home. So those are just conversations that you can have. And my thing is, I feel bad when we don't have those conversations, or when I don't bring something up to them. I think I feel more guilty in that aspect of not actually, doing that part. So I'm Angelique and I'm done.
Thank you. Yeah, those are really great conversation starters as well. Before I throw it to you, Dan, really quick, because I know we're running low on time, Harumi just joined us on stage. So, first of all, I wanted to make sure, am I saying your name right? Is it Harumi? Do I have that right?
Yeah, you got it right. My name's
Perfect.
Harumi.
Thank you. Would you like to contribute to the conversation, Harumi?
Sure. Hi, everyone. This is Harumi, and I work for a small, rapidly growing city in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I just wanted to mention one thing. As a newcomer to the field of economic development, and Dan, Bob, and Laura, everybody on the stage are really demonstrating their role as a catalyst and, the creative economy through this clubhouse by launching this room. So they're really the innovator, and we really have to think ourselves as an innovator and creator. And yeah, I just wanted to thank you all. And I just think, this process itself as an innovation, I'm just incredibly fortunate to personally witness this process and extraordinary moment, which I perhaps, didn't exist 20 years ago. So I just wanted to thank you all. This is Harumi, and I'm done speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Harmy, for sharing your thoughts. That's amazing. It is 12:55. Before we wrap up the room, Dan, I wanted to throw it to you one more time if you had something more that you wanted to share.
Thanks, Bob. And I think I've shared this story before, but Lara reminded me of it. So, love all the conversation about collaboration. I also will interpret, I think, what Lara was saying, which is she had an event with a particular kind of theme, and some of her folks felt it was too structured, so they decided to do their own thing or a version of that. And it reminds me of product development. So we had developed this product called the Taste Trail, which was basically an experience-based wine and culinary trail. And it was very successful. And our artists wanted to have something similar. And so we had government cultural attributes and artists who basically are entrepreneurs. They all run their own businesses. And we were working in a group to develop what that trail might look like. And the government cultural facilities were just being governmenty and dragging their butt and not doing what Lara was saying, which was taking risk and innovating and pivoting, etc. Anyway, long story short, there was a coup d'etat. So there was a state takeover, if you will, by the artists. The artists basically called me and said, Dan, we're pulling out. We're going to do our own thing. I pulled an emergency meeting together. The government folks couldn't respond. And the artists end up owning and running the Arts Trail. And it's still going to this day because they had a vision. They were no nonsense. Their business, they felt, needed this marketing tool. And so I just relate a little bit to what Lara was saying, is that sometimes as catalysts, we put something out there and somebody else in the private sector or what have you has a better idea, and then they run with that. So I think our job as innovators is to get the heck out of the way and do whatever we can to support them. So it was fun. There was no bloodshed in the coup d'etat, and the artists created more creativity in the community. I'm done speaking.
Really great thoughts, Dan. Thank you so much. It is 12:58, so I wanted to go around and ask for some final thoughts. But before I do, I also wanted to share a quick reminder that Dan and I, he had mentioned earlier, we do have this club on Clubhouse as well, not just these chats. So as an economic development professional or community development professional, if you're interested in hosting a room on a particular topic, we would love to support you. We would love to give you that space and help you get started. If you think there's a topic that maybe needs its own hour-long conversation, please reach out to myself or Dan. We'd love to help you get started with that and to facilitate that so that you can lead that topic with us as well. So I wanted to offer any final thoughts to the room. When we talk about innovation, we've said a few things, we've shared quite a few things, but is there any final thoughts where we can go from here, Lara?
Yeah, there's a great book that was written called Startup Communities. It gets a little redundant, but the one key principle of what was written by Brad Feld was if it's led by government, if innovation and entrepreneurship is led by government, it will fail. Where it really needs to come from is the business community with government support. So, I think while we're innovating as an industry, we also need to be really mindful that we should be supporting our entrepreneurs and creating their own ideas and supporting their innovation rather than trying to be their innovator. I'm Laura, I'm done speaking.
Really good point, Laura. Dan?
I mean, I couldn't agree more. My whole background is entrepreneurship and private sector. And almost everything I did and do really looks to help support and uplift and let the private sector drive and for us to play whatever role we can. So, yeah, I mean, business is business, it's not government. And the economy, for the most part, is the private sector. So I think our role is to facilitate and lubricate and let the private sector do what they do, get out of their way when we can, and support them when they need us the most, like perhaps during COVID and other more day to day examples. I'm done speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you. Did anyone else want to share some final thoughts as well on the topic of innovation? Laura? Laura? I got it, Laura.
Thanks, Bob. I think just on the theme of getting out of their way, and you asked where do we go from here? I think that as our profession, we should start applying our innovation to our municipal policies and procedures. Maybe not start, but there's some momentum there because of COVID. I've never seen our planners or engineers more flexible than they have been during COVID. So I think in terms of getting out of the entrepreneur's way, let's apply our innovation to our municipal policies and procedures, and let's make sure that we're being inclusive as we do that. That's all for me. Thank you again.
Thank you, Laura. For sure. Did anyone else have any final thoughts? Angelique?
I do. I think I just wanted to share that. I think when it comes to innovation, I just encourage sustainability. So for people to really just um, think about when they're being innovative and thinking about the next big idea or big change that they want to make, look at sustainability. If they look at it from that lens, I think that they'll be a lot more innovative for the long term instead of like the big hype for right now. Because at the end of the day, I want to see people make it, and not just make it right now, but make it from to the finish line. So that's all I've got, Angelique.
Thank you, Angelique. Thank you. Did anyone else have any final thoughts that they wanted to add? Okay. So on that note, we do host this particular room every Wednesday. As I'd mentioned earlier, Dan and I are always hoping to support other professionals who want to start a topic of their own within the Economic Development Club. But this particular one that Dan and I host is every Wednesday at noon Eastern Standard Time. We do run some bonus ones. We don't have one this Friday, but every other Friday we typically have a bonus one based on a topic that had a lot of conversation and we felt sort of needed some more direct conversation. So for all of you listening, we hope to see you here next week on Wednesday at noon for our next topic. Dan, did you want to add to that?
The topic is ecosystems, which I heard several times today. So bring your ecosystem hat on, and we'd love to hear some input and bring some folks along. Recruit people to our clubhouse, and the more the merrier.
That's the best part. Thanks, Dan. That's the best part about Clubhouse is we don't have a capacity or a number. Again, Dan and I, our mission is really to facilitate these conversations globally with economic development professionals. So yes, please bring your friends, your associates, your coworkers, your managers, stakeholders. We've had a few council members who have been in these chats. So, our goal is just to continue that conversation as well. So on that note, I want to thank everyone for participating. Everyone on stage, thank you for contributing. And Dan and I look forward to seeing you guys next Wednesday. Now, if you haven't connected with Dan or myself on LinkedIn, especially Dan, be sure you do that because he does create a podcast summary and blog summary based on what we've talked about today. So you'll want to be able to get in on that. Thank you guys so very much, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks all. Have a great
Thanks,
day.
everyone.